Alright, so today I want to make a video talking about this quote from Thomas Sowell. Now, during times like this, we kind of have to be talking about this stuff a lot because there's so many people that really just don't know what they're talking about, that really believe the lies, the fear, all that kind of stuff. And I guess just getting right into it, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. The black family survived centuries of slavery and generations of Jim Crow, but it has disintegrated into the wake of liberals' expansion of the welfare state. Most black children grew up in homes with two parents during that day, and now they grow up with only one. And again, obviously they're averages, so again, people always point that out. And the first thing to point out is that I've always said that racism does exist to some degree. Where I differ from the Black Lives Matter, at least most of them, the Black Lives Matter people and a lot of these liberals and leftists, is that they think, at least they have to think, they literally have to think by default, or else their argument makes no sense, is the main reason for the pain and suffering and the struggles of the black community is a result of racism. That's pretty much their argument they're saying, because if it isn't, then why are you so up in arms about it? Where I differ is that I say, yeah, racism exists to some degree, but it is only a very small percentage of the suffering, probably like 10%. Racism does exist to some degree, absolutely, but the main reason for the pain and suffering comes from the welfare state. Now, again, what pieces of evidence do we have that definitively proves that? Okay, well, stuff like this. And for the simple reason that, okay, black families were much more stable. They committed less crime back in like the 1920s, 30s, 40s. I think Jim Crow was around for most of that. I don't know off the top of my head the exact year Jim Crow was ended, so I don't want to talk too much about that. But objectively, there was much more racism back then than there was now. No one can possibly argue that, because there was literal racist, segregation, stuff like that was literally still on the books back then. So you can't possibly argue that there's more racism now than there was back then, when there was literal racist laws on the books. And now there's racist laws, but they tend to benefit blacks. Namely the equality, the gender, the getting into college, that kind of stuff. You have to have a certain amount of blacks regardless of their grades, certain amount of this, certain amount of that regardless of grades, all that kind of stuff. So again, the racist stuff tends to benefit the blacks and benefit the women. In fact, it flat out does. It benefits and again, you have Asians, you have white, and to a lesser degree whites, that have to score much higher than the average black to get into college. Now again, that is not by any means a equal law. If it was equal, we wouldn't care about the races. We wouldn't care. We just flat out give the spots to the people with the best grades. We just flat out give the job, the promotion to the person who was most deserving of it, regardless of race or gender. And this isn't what the left believes. They believe that, it must be a exact percent of the population. The problem with that is that there's other things that factor in. One of the things that factors into some of the high level jobs is IQ, and the fact too is just the flat out men women thing. A man with a 120 IQ is probably going to be on average more driven, more competitive than a woman with a 120 IQ, because men, that's just the nature of men. They're more competitive, they're more ambitious, which is the main reason that explains the differences between men and women and whites and blacks. And again, obviously black men and white men are pretty much the same when it comes to testosterone and whatnot, but that's largely an IQ thing. So again, the reason that the thing that explains most of those things isn't sexism or racism. The problem with that is that if you're racist as a business owner, it is going to hurt you. And this is the big contradiction of the left, is that on one hand, they'll say, oh, corporations and business owners they're greedy, all they care about is money. But on the other hand, they'll argue, oh, well, business owners are so racist, at least some of them, that they're willing to lose money to satisfy their racism. Well, which one is it? Are they greedy and all they care about is money, or are they racist? Because here's the point. If you have two candidates for a job, one of them being a black man, one of them being a white man, let's just say the black man can sell 10% more widgets, then that guy's going to make you 10% more money. But because you're a racist, you don't hire him, and your competitor hires them, which means your competitor is going to have a competitive advantage because they can hire a guy at the same cost and he's going to be more productive. So again, this is the problem of the left, is that they kind of have to pick one. Like, again, it's just one of the many contradictions to the left. Like, which one is it? Like, do you only care about profits or do you care about racism? Like, you have to care about one of them more. Now, I think that it's very obvious that some people probably are willing to um, be racist and lose money. Some people are probably most people probably care more about, in fact, I would say the clear majority of people probably care about the money more. And not because they're greedy or the greedy crap capitalists. No, it's because anybody wants to make more money. Like, everybody wants to make more money. So that's the thing there. But getting back to the main point here is that the welfare state, I believe, has done as much damage as Jim Crow, as all the segregationist laws. Probably not slavery, because slavery was really bad, but the welfare state is by far the most damaging thing to the black community. If the welfare state was ended, it would do so much it would do infinite amount of times. If we could magically eliminate racism overnight, it would do, eliminating the welfare state would do like 10, 20 times more to help the black community than eliminating racism, because racism is a very small issue. It does exist to some degree, but it is a very small issue. And the point being is that because of the welfare state, you have generations of people who are single mothers who are on welfare. And the problem is, okay, well, what happens to what happens to kids of single mothers? Well, the men are much more likely to end up as criminals or in jail, and much more likely to do the same thing, have a kid or kids and, leave the girl or the woman out on their butt, a single mother. And the cycle continues. Okay, well, what happens with women? Well, women of single mothers are much more likely to end up as single mothers. So again, the cycle repeats. And the problem is that the welfare state literally pays people to do that too. People think that welfare is about, oh, compassion and we're just helping. No, you're not helping. Yeah, there is some people. Again, there's always exceptions to the rule, but most of the people on welfare, you're literally just paying to be poor. You're just paying to be poor. What would happen is if you ended welfare state, it wouldn't be chaos and, oh, everybody would die. That wouldn't happen. People would simply just adjust. People would get jobs. People would stop having kids with unreliable men. That's one of the biggest things that would happen. The problem is now is that if you have a kid with an unreliable man, well, who cares? I mean, from a woman's perspective, they don't care because the government's gonna, or you get paid either way. Either you get paid for because you have a boyfriend or a husband who works, or you get paid from the government. So again, this is one of the many problems of why divorce rate and why dating is so bad these days, is because women have no incentive to pick good men. And again, women turn around and blame that on men, which is laughable. But again, there's no incentive to pick good men, which is one of the many reasons why of the struggles. And the problem too is that personality is overwhelmingly genetic. So if you want to complain about a man's poor personality, well, the real person you blame is the mother of that man for picking a bad guy to have kids with. It's not their fault. It's the mother's fault, largely. So again, there's so many aspects to this, but uh, the main point being is that the welfare state is what is causing, and again, it's not just the welfare state, it's the ramifications of the welfare state. The increase in crime, the increase in single motherhood, the increase of this, the increase of that, the increase of not graduating from high school, not getting a job or ever getting a job, some of these people, those are all ramifications of the welfare state. So that is the big problem, and it needs to be cut back on at the least, if not just flat out completely and utterly gotten rid of altogether. So anyway, that's the video for today. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Check out my PayPal and email. I got a link in the description. Again, appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And last couple things, as always, check me out on Twitter if you haven't already, and check me out on BitChute. All the links are in the description, so you can find them all there.